Put the background music down first. I did my job. That's it. That's the presentation. I did this. um, Tonight's gonna be a very interesting presentation. Doing things a little bit differently than I normally do. Uh, I don't know why, but I really felt right now it was a very important time to do this presentation, to cover this topic, because there are a lot of times, even though the company feels very successful or things are going well in my life, that I still feel like I'm being pulled down. And this idea of never giving up, always pushing forward, always growing, it's probably my biggest takeaway from my time working on Haunted Castle Gaming and working on Genesis. So this presentation is going to be different. It's going to be a little bit more personal when we get into it. I'm actually going to switch things up, and you're just going to see my face, and I'm just going to talk straight to the camera and tell some stories. But until we get there, let's go through our normal lead up to that. So uh, let's talk about why I do these presentations. Uh, I call them lessons learned in TCG design because it's based off this book, Lessons Learned in Software Testing. This book taught me, or at least gave me a lot of foundations when it came to software, and it was a lot about hearing from the experts and hearing their struggles, their challenges, and how they overcame it. And I think that's part of what I'm trying to deliver here, an opportunity for you to hear the struggles and challenges I go through and how we have grown from them, so that, and sharing that with you so that you don't make those mistakes. My three reasons of doing these presentations: one is to practice presenting, getting more comfortable being in front of a camera, speaking to an audience, and being comfortable being me. Uh, so that's a big thing in my mind. Uh, the second is a commitment to connect with the community on a regular basis. Be there for the community as it grows, as it learns this game and enjoys new content. I want to be there to show that no matter what happens, I am part of this community in a different way than everyone else, but I'm still part of it. And then a big thing is putting out content focused on TCG and CCG design. This is something I I'm not claiming to be an expert in. I'm not going to be perfect at it. There's a lot of things that I could be doing better. But I do know a lot, and I want to share my learnings forward in this particular space because there aren't enough different voices out there sharing their perspective on what it's like designing a TCG or a CCG. So, however, if you are just a game designer, you're a board game designer, even if you're a collectible card game designer, go check out Board Game Design Lab. They have a lot of great content out there, and I will always be a big supporter of everything that Gabe Barrett does. He's a great guy, and I think he gave me, in the early days, he gave me a lot of my initial standings in this industry. So, huge shout out to him. And a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting us every single month. Uh, we sent out the Patreon packages. I have seen quite a few people pick them up and go through them. Everyone who is at Atlas or Torchlight, I haven't been able to deliver your package yet, but it will arrive soon. Everyone else, I have shipped your package out or dropped it off at your local game store. So expect to get that soon. Once you do, let me know. Put out a video showing your package opening. I've been really excited to see there's someone, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember who it is. But he actually puts out videos every single month of his Patreon package opening. And I'm like, this is really cool. I love seeing that. So share that. Next month's promo is going to be that backflip. It's going to look awesome. Be really excited about it. And be excited about Patreon because I think the next few months are going to be really, really cool for all Patreon members. Excuse me. I ate just before doing the presentation. I gotta remember to give myself a little bit of break before presenting. Alright, huge shout out to our future leaguers. Thank you so much for all the work and support that you do month over month. week over week, day over day. We've seen a lot of cool progress. I think Origins is going to really reap the rewards of having a good, strong testing team in front of it. Origins is going to be such an amazing set. Everything about it. I love where it pushes the boundaries and where it keeps things confined. I like how it challenges the status quo of the game, but still reinforces it in different ways. A lot of that could not have happened if it wasn't for the Future Leaguers. If you want to be part of Future League, just leave a comment in this video while you're watching now, and I will get a hold of you and we'll make that happen. All right, let's jump into this. Learn, pivot, keep moving. It's the same message of never give up. Never give up. All right. I don't have directly different slides. I could have pulled up pictures from all these things about all the different challenges, but these are the things that I'm going to be talking about and where it kind of leads me in my life and as I grow. So instead of keeping this screen up and the only thing that's moving is myself and it's very small and everything, I'm actually going to do this. Hey! A big version of me. Um, I don't know how long this presentation is going to be. I hope it still fill out the time. But I'm glad everyone is able to come join and chat about this. So I am going to be covering some of the six of the biggest moments when I felt like this project just wasn't worth working on anymore, that I was going to give up and never touch it again. And basically how I got from there to here and why I still do it and why I think I really, really love this. So the first thing I did when I was putting this together is I ended up asking my wife, what was some of the um, biggest challenges we had, or when was one of those moments that uh, we really like I really felt like I was going to give up, or she had the impression that I was really going to give up. um, and her response was, there's so many. And on one end it feels very depressing to think that way, but on the other end it's amazing to think that there were so many moments where I was just gonna give up, and instead of doing that, I learned from that moment. I grew from it and I pushed forward and I endured. So the first one, let's go to the very beginning when I left my full time job and I started working on this company. There were so many big changes that came into effect. One of the biggest being the um, all of a sudden your salary's gone. Your everything everything you've been working for up to that point, all those wins and all those failures, it's shifted completely. So not having a salary was a really big thing, and I was very cocky at the time, thinking that the savings we had was enough. But the reality of it is, this was so much more work and so much more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Before we started the company, we had actually put a down payment on a condo, and we were approved for the mortgage. Everything was good, and I remember the day I realized that because my salary was changing so much, we might lose that mortgage. And I was like, straight from the get go, like 1 or 2 days into it, I was almost about to be like, no, there's no point in doing this. Let's go back to work. Let's not take this adventure. And like, the stability of having a full time job is, it's so hard to let go of. It's a great safety net. It's the thing that can remind you day after day that, you know, you can pay your rent, you can buy food, you can pay for gas. Uh, there's a lot less risk in it. Now, the thing I really got out of that is n- things like salaries or having that mortgage or all those other benefits I had for having my full time jobs. Those were things that the companies were giving me to make me feel good to work for them, but I wasn't happy. And I'm so grateful that I stuck with it, because even though at the beginning I was losing a lot, but what I was gaining out of everything was my own direction, uh, a, a purpose to move forward every single day. And I remember just a few months after starting this company, I was a lot happier in my life. I started building relationships with my brother-in-law and my mother and father-in-law, and just my relationship with my own father and with my wife. Everything just started getting better, and I started feeling more confident in what I was doing. Not saying that this is what you need to do if you want to feel more confident and happier in your life. But for me personally, I was very grateful that I found that realization that having a full time, like having a solid salary and a full time job, was not worth the cost. And the bigger cost was my overall happiness. And so, even though at the very beginning I already felt like I was going to give up, I'm happy I didn't. And I kept pushing forward. We had a lot of wins for the first little while as I was trying to organize myself and put things together. Everything was just a low hanging fruit, and I was able to find success everywhere I went. The next big hurdle came from starting to do conventions. So the first convention, we tell the story time and time again. The first convention we went to for SkyCon, we took our alpha product. We had 30 starter kits. We took it there, and I think we sold like 20 or 27 of them. We sold out of almost our entire stock in that one weekend. And we were really surprised because the starter kits for alpha were selling for $70 at SkyCon. And $70 for a two-player starter kit for a TCG is really expensive, especially when you consider, buying two Magic starter decks for $20 or any other TCG. You're basically spending $20 or so to get a two-player starter kit. We were charging 70, and to sell that many, we thought we were on a roll, and we got really cocky about this. Every convention we went to afterwards, we just expected the same success, the same results, and that wasn't the case. Our next several conventions, we were lucky if we sold two starter kits, two to three starter kits. For the most part, we just sold one starter kit every single convention. There were some conventions where we sold absolutely nothing. Um, our first genre con was actually a huge challenge and a huge disappointment because there was a snowstorm that hit that weekend, and a lot of the participants just never showed up. So it was really just the booth vendors walking around from booth to booth, getting to know each other, and um, seeing what each other had and buying things. And I'm sure for a lot of the people who were there, it was a huge sacrifice because they were either taking the day off or they closed their shop for the day. Uh, but at the end of it all, I could only feel about my own sacrifices. And I had quit my job just shortly before GenreCon, and I realized that the only way I was bringing money in for the company was to make sales. I had no other revenue for the company at that time, and the fact that I only made, I think, two sales that entire convention, it felt very defeating. Uh, there were I remember a lot of really low moments thinking, you know, we were lucky if we made 70 or $140 that convention. Uh, this is not comparable to anything I was doing before. And why am I continuing to push myself time and time again for this? And like I said, this happened for several conventions. And each convention, I I did something that I was very proud, and I'm really, really happy that I went back and I did. I spent time to write a little blog article stating, this is the convention, these were the good things that happened, and these were the things that I wish I could improve on. And with each one, I got a little bit better. I got a little bit more confident. I made our displays a little bit better. And I realized that these were stepping stones. As long as we had some sort of money in the bank that we could work with, I could use this time to take some risks. I could take some challenges and grow as an individual. Create those, um, what do you call them? Create those milestones that I could accomplish and become just better all the time. So what my takeaway for you would be when it comes to conventions is putting yourself out there is the win. Redefine how you're defining success. If your success is purely on monetary gain, then you're going to lose out on all the experiences that you're gaining from there. I before starting this company, I was a very shy person. I was not a huge fan of talking to people who I did not know in the past. I did not make a lot of new friends. I think from the end of high school till I started this company, I can confidently say that I made at least one friend, and that's my wife. Even though we met in university, like we really became friends afterwards. I did not make a lot of friends up until then, but since starting this company, I made a lot of really, really close friends, and my life just it feels so much more enriched because of it. So think about how you're defining your success every step of the way. And even if a moment is not the way you expected it to be, think of the things you got out of it despite that. All right. The third thing on my list are the doing demos at ANC. These were interesting nights. For people who don't know, for the first, I want to say year and a half of launching Genesis, I would go to a hobby shop in downtown Toronto, ANC Cards and Collectibles, and I sat there while they hosted Friday Night Magic every week, and I had my game out, like the mat was out, two decks, and a little sign that says "Learn how to play Genesis Battle Champions." I did this every single week. I sat there for 3 hours. A lot of times I would get there starving because I hadn't eaten anything. I left straight from the office to ANC, and I was just super tired. But I committed to it, and I did this all the time. During winter, during summer, I was always there, and I remember most of my time was spent talking to the staff at ANC. I did not do. I was actually really surprised if I had any nights where I'd even do one demo. Most of my nights I did nothing, but I still put myself out there. And I remember one particular night calling my wife, just leaving ANC, and thinking to myself, "That's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore." And as she was talking to me, calming me down, I started taking some deep breaths, and this is where that mantra came in, and it was learn, pivot, keep moving. What did I learn tonight? Well, I learned that I can sit there, and even though I'm not successful, I can still persevere. I can still have confidence in the product itself. So, what was my next step? What was the thing I was going to pivot on? Well, maybe next week I would try talking to someone, set the goal of finding someone who maybe they had a buy, maybe they were there watching a friend play, and be like, "Hey, can I chat with you and show you Genesis?" And then it's like, "Okay, set a new goal. Let's do that next week." And then next week I'll try that. Okay, it didn't go well. Well, something new, and I learn, pivot, keep moving. Eventually, I got the support from the staff that between rounds they would make an announcement to everyone who's playing and say, if you are done your round early, or if you are interested, there's someone doing demos for a new TCG. Go check it out. So even though I don't think anyone who I demoed the game to is actually part of the community anymore, plays Genesis with us, it was still really, really good. And it did give me the confidence going back to the conventions. So I did the conventions for a while, no success. I did these demos, no success. But I went back to the conventions. I had more energy about it because I knew that even in an 8-hour day at a convention, at least I would do demos. I may not make the sales, but at least I'd be doing the demos. And that's way better than sitting at ANC for 3 hours and not doing any demos. So uh, these things kind of compounded on each other. And even though there were some of the most difficult things I had to do in the past, I'm still very grateful that I kept on pushing and I did it. All right, next thing that was a big challenge for me was our first rejection. The first time I went to a store and I pitched them Genesis, and they just weren't interested in carrying any product at all. Uh, it's there's no reason for me to say the name of the store, so I'm not going to. But I remember being very confident because up to that point, every other store we've shown the game to was yes, we'll carry your game. Yes, we want to help promote it. Yes, we want to help you grow. And I went to this other store and they're like, no, your product's not ready. Your company's not ready. You're coming to us with something that's very weak, and you're expecting us to carry this. Why would we do that? What is it in it for us? And at first, I remember walking away from that meeting and shaking it off and being like, ah, it's just one rejection. I'll get many, but this is just one rejection. The next one will be a success. And that just began the stream of rejection after rejection after rejection, and constantly trying to show the game and bring my excitement and bring my love, and having people say no. And eventually it kind of doubled up on itself, where it got to a point where I would already come to the meeting thinking they were going to say no, and I would present it in such a bad way that they had no other choice but to say no. Like, if I wasn't excited, why would they get excited about it? um, this was such a common occurrence. And I remember at one point thinking to myself, like, I am a stereotype. This is the story every startup company talks about rejection after rejection. I have to get comfortable with that. I didn't get comfortable with it. I never liked it. I still don't like it. It's still not something I'm like, hey, I can get a rejection and just walk it off, right? No. But what I did get from it was the ability to take that rejection when they would say no, instead of my reaction or my gut saying, become defensive, don't say anything, and don't do anything good about it. I would I would be able to come back at them with questions. If they say no, the game's not good enough, what don't you like about the game? What are things that you're not a huge fan of? So I took that opportunity to learn how to grow and defend the thing I believe in. Now, when I don't walk into meetings assuming that they're going to say no anymore, I walk into them saying, even if they say no, that's just their opinion. And I believe in my product. I may not be happy that they said no. I may feel like, hey, I think this game would have been really, really great for them. I wish they had said yes. But at the same time, I am confident that Genesis as a whole, as a game, it matters in this industry, and what I do actually matters for things moving forward. I haven't been paying attention to chat. I'm so sorry. I just saw this now. So Max, yes, these videos are recorded. You can check them out on YouTube and Facebook. On Facebook, you have to go to the videos and then select live, and same with YouTube. But they're there. There's also a playlist on YouTube to find them, and also on Twitch. Um, and thanks for joining, Azrael and John. I really appreciate everyone who's here. Uh, so excited to have you come and join the conversation. All right. I have one last thing that has always been a big challenge for me up to this point. So well, it looks like the stream is going to be a little bit shorter. But if you have questions, if you have things you want to ask me about this topic or anything else, get ready for that because we got Q&A after this. But my last thing that always bogs me down, these are the moments where um, I walk around like a zombie at home because it happens every single time, and I haven't quite found a way to move how to just let it happen and be strong during it. But at the same time, even though I know it's a reoccurring issue, I I've I push through it. I learn to grow, and that's every time we have to pay the bills for inventory. And I know it's a kind of a silly thing to say, but there's constantly a challenge of understanding all the dynamics of your business, of like how are all the teams operating, how are all the invoices being paid, how is all the revenue coming in, how are all the clients receiving the product. There's so many different things that come, and when we come close to a launch, it's a intense mixture of feelings between excitement and frustration and confusion. And every single time, I'm always like, okay, you're ordering the product. What happens if no one likes it? Like, especially when we were ordering Raise. Raise was a really challenging thing because it was during COVID. We took a huge risk and decided to launch the product during COVID, and we were really worried that what happens if no one buys it? What happens if no one likes the game? I know some stores that put in pre-orders for Raise, and uh, month after month, I would talk to them like, "Yeah, we didn't sell any of it yet." And this is such a stressful thing. I think more than anything, not so much the inventory or the budget, it's the reception of the game. And it's getting a lot better. And I really appreciate all the people who come out and to these videos, to our chats, our roundtables, Discord, and as part of the community and constantly showing us that, they really love this game, and they're really excited about the future. And I really appreciate that. But in the early days, that challenge was always there. I didn't know if people shared the same vision as I did. If the people who enjoyed the game during beta would still enjoy the game during Welcome to JLR, or moving on to Raise, or what we do for Origins. Every time we do something that's really out there, we are taking a risk. We are putting the entire process into your hands. And this is, a project I've been working on for over a decade. And to think that the bad reception that can come out of it could leave us in a situation where the company falls apart, that causes me at times that stress, that anxiety, that causes me to fall apart. Um, So I know there's been a lot of times where I did just want to pack it up just because it was so difficult trying to think, is this the right time for me? Is this going to work out? Are these sets going to be well received? Is the community going to grow or stay stagnant? And I think we're getting to a point where a, time and time again, people are showing the love and support for the game, and it makes it easier. It makes it easier to digest that. And even if some people don't like what we're doing, I think they're still going to respect what we're trying to do. And the people who really don't like what we're doing, maybe they weren't part of that core community. In a lot of ways, this is a sense of me trying to discover, do people even get me? Do am I understood in the world? Because they say this in a lot of places, but it's the idea that when you make art, you put a little bit of yourself in it. Genesis is my vision of how a game should be played. It's how my brain works. There are a lot of mechanics and a lot of rules that seem confusing, but that's because that's how it clicks in my brain and how it all kind of falls into place. So when I see other people connect with that and understand it and love it, in a lot of ways they're saying, I understand you and I get you, and that you're part of this world and you can connect with us. And that is a really, really good feeling. So when I put myself out there and it doesn't work out, alhamdulillah, up to this point, it has always worked out. But if it doesn't, when that time comes, I don't think I'll feel as bad about it as I did in the past, because I know that there are a lot of people who will still support it, who will still understand it. So for everyone who is part of that conversation, thank you for being part of that conversation. And for everyone who doesn't see things my way, or who doesn't like the game or understand the game or anything like that, that's okay. I think I'm okay with that, because hopefully you found a game you do enjoy and it does work for you, and that you found something that you can connect with. I'm just really grateful that at this point in my life I can say I put something out there that I found a lot of people who can connect with it and who can connect with me on that level. So I think those are kind of the big ones. I know that this was a different presentation than I normally do. This one was a little bit more emotional, a little bit more intense, and I'm putting myself out there a little bit more. I think with the release of second edition, I've had a lot of anxieties and concerns about it. I didn't know if it was going to be the right product out there and if things are going to be very clean and organized and move forward in the right way. But I'm getting more confidence in that. I think all of these, not failures, but cracks in the stones that I had to walk on to get to this point, they have given me the strength to know that my next step is going to be manageable. I did realize I do have one last one last thing. Uh, so I wrote this as just Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood came out a year after we did, and they had massive success. And there is nothing wrong with that. In no way do I think any of the competitors, any of the other TCGs out there are bad games. I think they're all great, and their fans that are loyal to them. That's awesome because, as you know now, uh, showing your love and appreciation for someone else's art, someone else's work, uh, it means a lot to them. It doesn't just mean like to you as a player, you love this game. That's great. To the person who created that game, that means that a part of their identity is now accepted by the larger community, and I think that validation is a really good feeling because it does take a lot to put yourself out there. Um, I have it here written as comparing yourself to others should be a sin. Uh, I I remember when Flesh and Blood first came out, and I was looking at it, or not when it first came out, but when it first hit North America, and I was looking at it, and I was comparing their success to ours, and why couldn't we be at that level, and what are the big differences there? And I was like, you know what? This game came out a year after us, and they exploded. They did so much better than we did at the beginning, and they have grown so much faster than we have. What am I doing wrong? Am I the right person to lead this project? Am I the right person to lead this company? And there have been a lot of times where I thought maybe I should just give up. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And I'm now learning a lot more that just because they did things differently and succeeded in different ways, it does not mean that your successes don't mean anything. And it does not mean that you should stop trying to be the best that you can be and work towards being a really great at whatever you do. So I've had this moment a lot in my past. I remember meeting someone who was a year older than me and was already a multimillionaire, had made a lot of companies, sold them, and he just didn't need to work another day in his life, but he worked because he had nothing else to do. So he would find companies that he was really excited to work for and just worked for them. And then when he was bored, he left. And he was very inspirational. And I thought to myself, if he can get that far in the same amount of time that I did, why couldn't I get there? And now I'm realizing everyone was just on their different paths. And the path that I went down, I'm really grateful to have the life I have. And I think when I look at Genesis as a project and compare it to Flesh and Blood, to Magic, to Yu-Gi-Oh, to Pokemon, to MetaZoo, to any other game that's out there, um, every game has their own strengths, and I don't think there's any game that's terrible. I just found the game that was right for me, and no one else was gonna make it, so I made it myself. And I think that's a good place to be at. I think that's a good place to be at in general with anything you do. So those were kind of my darkest moments in this company. Some of my lessons learned, some of the ways I've grown. Uh, I'm sorry if this was not what you were kind of expecting when you came to today's talk, but I'm glad that you came and that you've stuck with me throughout this entire thing. All right, I'm gonna jump into the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them into there because I'd love to hear from you. Um, so John, you say I'm working through a similar situation at the moment, doing rules, card design, art, doing play testing, balancing, finding correct card stock, fit and finish, etc. So I definitely feel it. I'm starting to really find that competition is what drives a lot of play now, rather than collection in the early and late '90s. Yeah, it's rough. Um, yeah, things changed so much. I know a lot of people who looked at the first round of art for Genesis, like in Alpha, or looked at the card stock in Alpha, the layout, and was like, hey, this is not at the same quality as Magic. So if you can't deliver at the same quality of Magic, don't even try. Don't even be part of this. Don't even start the conversation. Uh, and to them, I say, you're wrong. Because Magic isn't where Magic was. It's If you look and compare alpha magic cards or even the Fallen or Dark and compare them to now, there's this huge difference in everything that they did. Same with Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and even Genesis. One day we'll look back and we'll, even now, if you look compare cards from Rays to the cards from Alpha, there's a big difference in the overall feel of things. And this actually comes back to another thing, which is like the artwork in the game. I know that there's some art pieces in Genesis that may not be for you. Some people may love this piece of Essence Drain that's on the screen. Other people may not. Some people may love Tacky Psyche. Some people may not. Some people may love Alpha Cog Restrict. Some people may not. Just because you don't like it doesn't give you the right to bash it, because there are artists who actually put a lot of work in it. Like the person who made Alpha Cog Restrict, he worked so hard and he pushed himself so much to get that to that quality. It may not be the strongest piece in the world, but he put a lot of effort in it. And like we said earlier, that connection with the community, the love and respect that the community can give you, that can really validate you as someone who's trying. So be careful of how you word yourself around other people's work. But yeah, the game industry has changed a lot, and uh, we look at. I even think about the secondary market when I first started playing TCGs. Yes, the secondary market kind of existed. You could buy singles, but it wasn't as prominent of a thing as it is now. You didn't think, hey, I'm gonna play Magic. I want to play a particular deck. Let me go buy one, buy the deck. You would go through packs and you would try to collect them, and you would trade with people. That's not as much of a thing now. I remember back in the day, the whole entire concept of trading was that, do I feel good about this trade? Do you feel good about this trade? Okay, let's trade. Now it's, okay, let's go look up the value of all these cards on the secondary market, compare them, make sure that the same value, and make sure this trade is fair. There's none of that emotional or gut check type of thing. Things are very different, and some of them for the better, some of them not. But uh, we got to, as designers, we got to figure out what's right for us. What are the things we value, and push our own pillars, our own perspectives of what the industry should be like out there. Because if we're not advocating for our design principles, no one else are going to advocate for them. Uh, so I don't know. Redemption TCG, is that? There is one. Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Where's the brother and sisters that made them? So sorry, the comment from John. You sound a lot like the makers of the Redemption TCG. It's very interesting. Um, let me know, John, if those are the brother and sisters that are making the TCG in the states, that they're not using a distributor; they're directly selling. Um, oh, okay, not Exodus. Okay, so yeah, like I feel like the stories that I'm telling aren't just about TCG design. Now, there's particular niche issues in the TCG design, which is like um, dealing with the so when I was going through, I'd say, training as an entrepreneur, I signed up for a bunch of classes and lectures and things like that. And one of the things they were saying to me was, when you're trying to figure out what your next steps are, look at comparable or competitors in your industry that are 3 to 4 years ahead of you, and see what they're doing and figure out, do you want to follow that path or just pivot and do something different. Then I would go to my mentors and say, there's no one who's only 3 years ahead of me. The next biggest competitor is at least a decade ahead of me, millions more dollars than I do. How do I make those decisions? And I think now we're getting into a wave where we're going to see new designers come in, and they're going to have people that they can look at and figure out what they want to do. So, um, yeah, I think the stories I'm sharing are just very common for entrepreneurs across the spectrum. I just wanted to share a little bit about my challenges with those. Brittany, I just popped in as I had a moment, but I really like hearing that. I think it's awesome that you had struggles, but you never give up on it. I really enjoy Genesis, and I'm very thankful for you. Yeah, Brittany. I'm. I like sharing the stories. I like connecting with the community, and I like letting you know that this is. I'm just as passionate about this project as you are as players, and seeing the community enjoy the game and love the game is really really great. But I want you to know that there was a lot of struggles that went behind us. One day we may look back on this and think that yeah, this game just exploded and it was everywhere and it was just a flyby type of project, or not flyby but like an overnight success. And it's not. It took years, almost a decade, well more than a decade of design and testing and work to get it this far. And I hope that everyone who, like, years from now, someone will come back to this video and see all the struggles I went through and think, you know, it's it's humbling in a way. It's a good way to recognize where you started from, where your roots are. I remember talking to just recently JC, who's one of the designers. We were talking about how sometimes a lot of these big companies, they act as though they forgot where they came from. They think that just because they've been in the industry for so long, and this isn't just our industry, I think this is across the spectrum. People who have been successful for so long forget what it's like to struggle. And when you remember what it's like when you had $0 in the bank account and you still had to pay thousands of dollars in invoices, it reminds you how much it matters to just be positive, push through, and learn and become a more solid entrepreneur or CEO or whatever your role is. All right, I think we're going to wrap this one a little bit earlier. I have some announcements, but of course, throw in more chat or questions or anything that you have. I'd love to address them. All right, so Meta Mondays, don't forget every Monday. Will is organizing that. He does a great job at trying to keep the community pushing forward on learning more about the game and the intricacies about it. I've learned a lot from this, so I definitely want to support it and think it's great to have that out there. Um, Sorry, and then exploring the libraries every Tuesday at 7 p.m. It's a opportunity for to talk more about the game itself. So these live streams, these Friday ones, the game design talks, these are purely about TCG design. This is my perspective, and for me to share some of my knowledge with you. The exploring the libraries, that's purely about Genesis and talking about everything around Genesis. So come out to those ones. I think they're a great talk. Next tabletop tournament is tomorrow. If you want to play on Tabletop Simulator in a tournament, come register for it. Go to the Genesis website under events, and you can come register for that. Akasha Codex, the next one's coming out on the 14th, which should be Monday. It's a great chapter. It's going to continue the fight that's happening in Rays. So if you want to know what's happening with the world of Jaylara, what all the background issues were for all the champions and how did they get to where they are, go check those out. The Akasha Codex on the website, written by Carl. He does a great job bringing this world to life. And then the town hall, that one is already done. So the next one will be the first Monday of July. Bronson, you ask him, and think Genesis is great. What is your biggest struggle, do you think? Uh, I don't know what the biggest struggle is. I think one of the biggest struggles I have is the balance between wanting to dedicate my life towards this project and having a life. Balancing between, the owner of this company and who I am outside of this company. Those are some of the biggest struggles that I have on a regular basis. There's so many other ones like financial issues or team issues or community issues. All these other things that kind of come together. But the one that I've struggled with, I think, from the very beginning, and every entrepreneur struggles on this in a lot of ways. Just whenever you meet an entrepreneur, sit with them for like an hour or whatever, like meet up with them, and just count how long it takes for them to bring up their company, and then see how long it takes for them to stop. They are always thinking about the company. It is the only thing that's on their mind. But as individuals, we have to be multidimensional. Like, I am a husband, I am a son, I am a brother, I am a friend, I am a lot of different things. I'm an uncle. Actually, I really love being an uncle. And balancing between all those things and running a company, that I think is a big personal struggle that I deal with on a regular basis. Um, and okay, so thanks for the question. Yeah, these are all the upcoming events. Next thing on my slide, second edition. It's got to be awesome. So if you weren't part of the live stream on Tuesday, I did show how the starter kit box is gonna be. It's Raha versus Idris. It looks awesome. The designs are done by Mikhail, so finally the products look very, very pretty. They're gonna look gorgeous when they're on the shelves. And uh, yeah, just everything about it is amazing. This Tuesday during Exploring the Library, Alex and I are going to be taking the two decks and playing against them in Tabletop Simulator. So if you want to see what's in those decks and you want to see what are in those decks, make sure you join us Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be just spoiling it. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Those decks are phenomenal to play with. And then on top of that, make sure your retail store, your LGS, has put in their pre-orders for second edition. There are a lot of stores who haven't yet, and I still need to get on their cases about that. But if you want to make sure that you are going to be getting second edition product at your LGS, tell them to place in the order with their distributor. If they have any questions, tell them to email us, contact us at hauntedcastlegaming.com, and all the stores that put in their pre-orders will get that promo alternate art Baruch. Baruch's amazing card. This is the only way to get this alternate art. It looks great. If you want it, just make sure you're talking to your LGS and telling them, hey, I want that alternate art Baruch. Make sure you put in a pre-order for me, and then we will make that happen. But yes, second edition, I just signed all the proofs just earlier this week. So everything's kind of coming along, and we should have a release date very soon. All right. And to wrap this up, next week I'm going to be talking about pillars. This will be a lot more about design, and how do we make sure that the game stays the game we want to make? How do we make sure we stay in the direction we want to stay in every step of the way, and that the game that you played in Alpha, Beta, Welcome to Jellar, Raise, Origins, Invasion, and so on and so forth, it will stay Genesis. Make sure that the game you design is always the game you intended to make. So that's going to be next week. That's everything for this week. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. And if you're not part of Future League, message me. Let's make that happen. All right. Talk to you later. Take care. Bye.